Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today, doing the champions report for the IBF division. That's normally the red belt, the one that always stays red, not the maroon belt, which is the WBO title sometimes, or the black belt, which is the can be the WBA or the WBO belt. This belt's always red, predominant red, and you know, that's the belt we're going to focus on as we go from 122 all the way to heavyweight. Again, I do my champions reports about every couple months just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the champions in each division are doing. And, you know, it really is significant and matters because those are the biggest fights. Those are when the title fights. Those are the ones that the most money is generated. And lately we've been seeing a lot of belts trying to become unified and undisputed champions, unifying belts. So these are mostly the biggest names in boxing. So we're going to start at 122 pounds and look at the super bantamweight champion there. And that is the undefeated unified champ, Mirajan Akhmadaliev, also known as MJ. This guy holds both the IBF and the WBA world titles at 122. And next, he was ordered by the IBF to take on Marlon Tapales, his mandatory challenger. But apparently, step aside money or his mandatory for the WBA has superseded that, and it looks like he's going to be fighting veteran Ronnie Rios next. Rios has fought for a world title before, and now him and Akhmadaliev will lock horns. There's been no date or anything discussed as of now. The fight should take place on DAZN. I think because he last fought in November. It wasn't a grueling fight for him. He did have to compete and fight 12 rounds. He was supposed to fight Ronnie Rios. I think as soon as he's ready to go, this fight will be ordered. I think by my next champions report, this fight's probably going to be locked in on the schedule between Akhmadaliev and Ronnie Rios. So that's what it looks like he's going to be doing next. At 126 featherweight, the champion there is Kiko Martinez, and he's good to go. He's going to get a shot at revenge in his first defense of his title at 126, following his massive upset of Kid Galahad last year in, I believe it was November, when he knocked Galahad out in the 6th round of a fight that he was losing, and it was one-sided up to that point. But Kiko has signed on to take on Josh Warrington. That fight's going to take place on March 26th on DAZN. And I'm looking forward to that. You know, their first fight was back in 2017, so it's going to be about a 5 years in between fights. But that first fight was really close, and that was right before Warrington went on to defeat Lee Selby, and then he defeated Lee Selby, and then he knocked off Carl Frampton in back-to-back fights. So that was him at his best right there. Now he fought to a 2-round no contest, Warrington did, in his last one, and a rematch against the guy that beat the shit out of him last year, Mauricio Lara. Martinez, at 35, is going to ride that title wave of confidence right now, and he's hell-bent on revenge, and he wants to keep his belt, and he wants to make some money. So he's going to get a shot at revenge against Warrington. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. I really think it could go either way. If I had to pick one guy, I'm probably going to go with Warrington to take this one, but I really do think it could go either way. I really do believe that. So I'm going Warrington by a very close decision, because by the next time I do my champions report, this fight will have happened. Warrington by a close decision, but I really think Kiko coming into this is a live underdog, and I really could see this fight going either way. 130, super featherweight. Champion there is Kenichi Ogawa. Of Japan. Ogawa captured the vacant title at the end of November when he defeated Azunga Fazil by a convincing 12-round unanimous decision, where he scored 3 knockdowns in that fight as well. Really controlled the action, looked good doing it, and he also signed with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom right after. So Kenichi Ogawa looks like he has a mandatory showdown with undefeated Shavkat Rakhimov. Rakhimov had to step out of the fight due to injury, but he was supposed to fight Ogawa last year, but he had to step out with the injury, and Fazil took his place. So now, according to what I've read, Rakhimov is the mandatory for Ogawa before Ogawa can move on and fight Zelfa Barrett. who is the other mandatory for the IBF. So as of right now, from what it looks like, again, it's not written in stone yet, but it looks like we're going to see Ogawa and Rakimov competing for the title next. And then the winner gets Zelfa Barrett in the second half of the year. But, you know, we got to see. If I had to predict when that fight could take place, Ogawa last fought at the end of November, and Rakimov returned and got a second round TKO against a nobody in December. I'm going to say April or May, March at the earliest. But I think by the next Champions Report that I do, that this fight will be on the schedule and locked in to go between those two guys. But we got to wait and see what happens. 135 lightweight. The champion there is the unified and undefeated champ, George Kambosos Jr. from Australia. Well, right now, you know, Kambosos basically holds 3.5 of the 4 world titles. And I say half because he holds the WBC franchise title, but is also recognized as the champion, as is Devin Haney of the United States. So he holds all the other belts. Right now, Kambosos is making it out that he is going to fight either Devin Haney next, the WBC champion, or he's going to fight his WBC and WBO #1 contender, the former 3-division champ, Vasily Lomachenko. Right now, I think there's more money on the table for a showdown with Lomachenko, but I heard there was a little bit of a dispute due to a rematch clause that Lomachenko does not want to have a rematch in the contract. And I think that's fair to Lomachenko because he's probably going to beat the shit out of Kambosos next. So why even bother having a rematch? And that's at his own risk, you know. If he were to lose that fight by a close one, Kambosos doesn't have to fight him again. So, but Kambosos being the champion, I also understand why he wants a rematch clause. So that's the fight I want to see. Hopefully that gets worked out. There's also the fight with Devin Haney. But right now, Devin Haney's people are saying that they're good to go with everything, but that Kambosos is hell-bent on having a fight in Australia. And right now, they're only at 50% capacity at events right now. So it's not going to be as big as Kambosos wants it to be. So the Haney side wants him to reconsider in the fight to go to someplace in the United States. But we'll wait and see what happens. I personally think Kambosos is going to fight one of these two guys, Lomachenko or Haney. I'm still leaning towards Lomachenko as being the opponent. I don't think the fight will happen by the next Champions Report, which is early April. So, you know, Kambosos and Lomachenko, they fought between 2 weeks from each other in November and December. I personally think we're probably going to see earliest April, most likely May, maybe even June, from what I heard that Kambosos wants. So we'll see what happens, but that's what I think. That's the lightweight division. 140, junior welterweight. Or super lightweight, whatever you want to call it. The champion there is the undefeated and undisputed champion, Josh Taylor. Taylor is locked in February 26th. He will defend all 4 of his world titles against his WBO mandatory challenger, Jack Catterall. He's undefeated, but hasn't really done much as Catterall. I think Josh Taylor's going to go in there, and as long as he doesn't overlook Catterall, he's going to put hands on him, dominate the action, and I think he wins that fight by a convincing, either a one-sided unanimous decision, or I can see him winning by a late stoppage is what I think is going to happen. But you never know, you know, and like I said, he could be overlooking the guy, but that fight's taking place February 26th on ESPN, Taylor and Catterall for the undisputed junior welterweight title at 140 pounds. Next up is the 147-pound title, welterweight, which is currently held by the undefeated unified champion Errol Spence Jr. He also holds the WBC belt. Now, Errol Spence they pretty much confirmed that Spence is going to be attempting to unify belts against WBA champion Yordenis Ugas, and that fight's supposed to take place sometime in April. That's, you know, both sides have said that they have verbally agreed to the fight, and Spence came out and said the fight's likely going to take place in April. They just reconfirmed that a few days ago, so it looks like that's still going to happen between those two, and I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be late April, maybe mid-April, so I do believe I'm going to have my Champions Report in before then, and I won't make a prediction on the fight until that fight is locked in stone anyways. So it looks like Spence and Ugas in April, though. 154 is super welterweight. they just finally finalized the fight. So the champion right now is the unified champ, Jeremel Charlo, and he is going to attempt to rematch for the undisputed championship against undefeated WBO champion Brian Castano. This is a big fight right here for these two guys. They fought last July, and it was one of the better fights of the year. A lot of back and forth with the ebb and flow. It was, and the tide shift. It was really a good fight. It ended in a disputed draw, and now they're rematching for the undisputed title on March 19th on Showtime. So my prediction, it really is a 50-50 fight and could go either way, but I feel like because Castano, I picked him to outwork Charlo, I think he is going to outwork him again. And and I had him winning a very close decision the first time around, but this time I really do believe Charlo, I believe Charlo stood a chance in the first fight, that it was a kind of a pick'em fight. I picked Castano the first time by a decision. I'm picking him again by a decision. But I really think the fight could end by knockout in either direction. Charlo hurt Castano a couple times in that fight. Almost put him down both times. And Castano also stunned Charlo a little bit. So I really do believe that the fight can go in either direction. And I'm picking Castano to win the fight by a close decision. Again, that's Saturday, March 19th on Showtime. Now, 160 middleweight, the title there, the champion there is Triple G Gennady Golovkin. Well, Triple G, from what we know, he's supposed to be returning against Ryota Murata. They were supposed to have a unification bout. Murata's the WBA champ. They were supposed to have a unification bout back in December, but because of COVID, that fight did not happen. So they're still supposed to get together. From what I heard, it's March or April. I haven't heard anything about March, so right now it's most likely going to be April when they start talking that fight. But I really do feel like that fight could go either way. When it finally does happen, I'm going to pick Triple G to win that fight, though, if it does. But I don't feel that fight's going to pop off before my next champions report in April. So, we'll see what happens there. Hopefully that fight still happens, though. 168, super middleweight. The champion there is the pound-for-pound king and undisputed champ, Saul Canelo Alvarez. Right now, Canelo is looking like he's going to stay at 168 for his next fight and take on Jeremel Charlo. He's been offered two contracts. He's been offered a chance to possibly go to 175 and take on Dimitri Bivol next, with Triple G as a two-fight package deal. Triple G fight in September, and then he also got offered by Showtime to take on what's his name, Jeremel Charlo, the middleweight champion. So personally, I feel like Canelo's going to go in that direction. It looks like his trainer and manager Eddie Reynoso is leaning towards that direction. And I really don't believe this cruiserweight jump is going to happen. So I think the IBF title at 168 is next going to be on the line, with Canelo and Charlo taking place in early May. But by the next champions report, we should know which way he's going at the very least, and what's going on with the IBF title next, if that happens. And then 175 is the light heavyweight championship is currently held by the undefeated and unified champ Artur Beterbiev. He holds both the IBF and WBC belts. From what I'm hearing, he is very close to signing on for a unification bout against WBO champion Joe Smith Jr. That's not confirmed. That's just a rumor right now that they are very close to signing on for a big-time unification bout in the summer. The only thing that's holding it up as of this moment is that Joe Smith wants to be paid $1.8 million instead of $1.5 that he's been offered. So, but they didn't say he's making a big deal about it or anything like that either. He said that, from what I'm reading, is he wants to make that fight happen. So we'll see. I believe by the next champions report, that fight will be finalized and we'll be good to go with that. For 3 of the 4 belts coming together. Which is a big deal because these guys are both playing the Canelo dance, and at some point Canelo's going to be moving to 175, and I'm sure he's going to want to go after whoever the unified champion and possibly undisputed champion is, because I think Canelo wants to become undisputed in another weight class. 200 pounds cruiserweight, the champion there is Maris Bradis. Maris Bradis, you know, I wasn't sure what the hell he was going to do next, but I just read that Bradis is wants to unify against Lawrence Okoli later this year, but first has to get a mandatory out of the way against Japanese challenger Jai Opentai or something like that. I can't remember the guy's last name exactly, but it looks like Bradis is going to have to make a mandatory of his belt then, and then he would be able to jump in against Okoli or somebody else in the second half of the year in what would be an optional defense. So I believe if that's the case, Bradis last fought in October, shook off some rust, dominated a guy named Arthur Mann in only 2 or 3 rounds. I believe that his fight should be coming up and on the schedule by the next Champions Report against this open tie guy. So hopefully that's the case. And then heavyweight, the championship there is currently held by the undefeated unified champ Oleksandr Usyk, who also holds the WBO and WBA super title. So Usyk, it looks like we got a clear path now that he's going to be rematching Anthony Joshua for sure. They're still trying to discuss a date and negotiate the fight altogether, because Anthony Joshua was offered step-aside money to allow Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk to collide for the undisputed title, but he ended up passing on that step-aside money, which was around $15 to $20 million, because he wants to avenge his loss to Usyk and go back and get his world title. So we're going to see what happens. I think it's going to be good. I believe that fight will be finalized by the next Champions Report, and we should know more in early April when I come back with that. But there's a lot of possible news for the IBF world titles, and I think we're going to have the next Champions Report. We will have a lot of fights that are good to go and signed. So just keep it posted. And that's it. That's what I got. That's the Champions Report for the IBF world title from 122 all the way to heavyweight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.